News to me.
Oh, wow. We're way too loud on the music.
Just jumped right in.
I'm just so excited that you're back.
It's like we're in an elevator and the speaker's right beside my ear.
What?
You're going to really enjoy this elevator ride, Tyler.
I like elevator music.
It's okay. It's good.
I don't.
It's good. Happy today.
It's today.
Whatever today is.
It's today.
It's just today.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Whoa.
That didn't hurt my ears at all. Thank you.
What did I do? I always
Hope
worry
everyone's doing well today.
I always worry like when I put
How are
things
you?
down, I don't want to like press any buttons and like something weird happens.
You got a lot of buttons that like really kind of, they can throw us into a tailspin if we push the wrong one.
I know.
Okay, today's exciting. Why is today exciting?
We have a friend first and foremost, but a fella from kind of a smaller local dental company.
just a little blip on the radar
He's one of the small ones, and it's nice to give the small guy a shout out. So
yeah. Am I looking at the wrong camera? Where am I? Am I here? Hi.
Oh, you're actually looking at a camera. I think that's us there.
That's us. Hey.
Yeah.
What's up?
Okay, we're now that we've lost everybody. Let's
just jump in. Okay, so we're super pumped to have Seth with us on the show. Seth is a very good friend of mine. Seth Stimpson from Dentsply Sirona. Give us a little.
Oh, look,
hey guys, thanks for having me.
His name bar is kind of over top where it belongs.
Perfect.
Hey, well done. You're getting better at this.
It's.
I totally knock him for this stuff, and I can't do any of it. So it's
I know.
funny.
One day I'm going to be like, "Hey Ty,
can you run the board today?
Can you set it up today? I'm going to be late." That'll be one fun episode.
The sheer panic on my face.
Yeah, it'll all be done on an iPhone.
That'll be the first and last episode from Tyler.
That's right.
Produced by Tyler.
It'll just be a South Park episode.
Yeah.
Like the stick men running through. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we've been excited to get you on the show for a while now, and and hoping and praying that you join us. And here we are.
It took a while, but yeah, thanks.
Well, here we are. I mean, I did drive 5 minutes to get here, so
yeah,
I don't know why it took me this long.
Yeah.
Well, we gave you a glass of water to compensate you.
And you gave me a coffee, so I'm ready.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, you owe me now.
100%.
Okay, so what are we talking about today, guys? There is a revolution happening in the world of building dental clinics, and we really want to jump into this. And I see you with a sound effect ready to. You're gonna do
Not yet.
maybe.
Don't do anything down.
Okay,
it'll happen.
So Seth he comes to us from Dentsply Sirona, obviously one of the largest manufacturers of dental equipment, technology, just an amazing company to work with and for. I would assume.
Yeah, 100%.
And yeah, let's just jump into it. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you end up at Dentsply Sirona first? I personally want to ask you a little bit about your history with Dentsply Sirona.
Sure.
And then we'll jump into what's going on in the market with building dental practices, because there's a lot happening right now. What's changing?
Absolutely.
So
it's an exciting time to be a dentist.
And Seth is super excited to get going here. Anyways.
He's like, let me at it.
Yeah.
So how did you end up at Dentsply Sirona?
Well, I've been at Dentsply Sirona now for 10 years.
We'll talk a little closer.
I actually started with Dentsply Sirona 10 years ago in our implant business.
Okay.
So I started selling Dentsply Sirona implants, which at the time consisted of two implant companies. One was Ankylos, one was Astrotech. I worked with that part of the business for about 7 or 8 years. And then I took on a new challenge with our equipment team, working with clinicians and people that want to build out dental practices.
Okay. And so your division, you're responsible for treatment centers, all the...
Yeah, so I'm so specifically on the product line side of our business, I do all of our large equipment. So anything that would be considered large equipment, which is going to be all of your treatment centers or quote unquote chairs, how they call them in North America, as well as our pans, 3D CBCTs, sensors, basically any large capital equipment purchase, essentially.
So like the treatment center, like it's the chair has like evolved into being this now a piece of technology that's sort of fully integrated into the patient experience.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really interesting that in Europe, we've had a really large percent of the market share there, but dental offices work very different in Europe than they do here in North America. So, what I thought I would try to do is help the Canadian market basically understand how the Europeans are working. A lot of European countries are a little bit ahead of their time. They're ahead of the North American market when it comes to things like design and some of those things. So what we basically wanted to do is, help our customers here understand how Europe's affecting the overall design market and then give them different options when they're building out a dental practice.
That's cool. So like, how is it that like seems to be, so there's this cookie cutter approach, like it's this the technology is now advanced so far that the operatory is almost like there's not enough space in there anymore.
Yeah. It's funny that you asked me that, because probably the biggest thing that I love doing is sitting down with a dentist or a team of dentists who are looking to build a practice and kind of taking them through a little bit of a process to kind of show them what their options actually are. Most dentists that are working today typically work a certain way because they went to school working a certain way. They learned how to work a certain way. They understand the ergonomics of the North American way of working. So I'll call it the North American way of working because it is very North American versus the European model. And that's just what they know. So it's really exciting for me because I get to sit down with these customers who have only ever seen one way of life when it comes to dentistry and show them an alternative, and to show them something that might be different, that's a little bit more technology focused, that's going to be a little bit better of an experience for their patient or a different experience for their patient. And really at the end of the day, I want to give people their options. I want people to understand before they spend, $500,000 to $1 million in building out a space to have a dental office, that they want to be making sure they're making the right design decisions. So
of course, yeah.
I walk them through a process and we look at the overall options of what we do, show them how it works, and then let them decide on what they want.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think
sorry, go ahead.
The future proofing too.
Future proofing, and that's where I was kind of going to go with that. Is that the central theme of our podcast is always around growth. So, and this is why I think that you and I have such great synergies, because when we talk about your equipment, when we talk about enabling the dentist to grow, it's giving them the tools, whether it's a treatment center, a CBCT, a chair that can pretty much do anything you want it to clinically.
It could give you a massage too.
It's true.
It's unreal.
It's true.
So that the chair you buy today might not do what you want it to in 5 years. And so
there's the specifics of the equipment itself, which we get into that conversation. But even
treatment center. I got to use that term.
But even I like to take it one step back even further and say, how does the operatory design on, where you're putting the chair, the cabinets, the space, how does that space that you're designing actually impact your patient's experience? Because as dentists, a lot of times dentists have been doing dentistry for so long, they forget what it's like to be a patient who has anxiety. They just do dentistry the way they've always done it.
Right.
So if we can, have the space provide a different experience to the patient, then they really get to differentiate themselves from their office, from the office across the street.
Right.
So we're jumping ahead by talking about the treatment centers. We really need to engage the conversation earlier.
Yes,
right?
100%.
When they're looking at the space.
Yeah.
Like, how early do you need to jump in and start conceptualizing what to put into this space?
Well, Tyler, thank you for asking.
So here, Tyler,
little segue for
first. I'm dying to do this. So Tyler, say dental chair.
Dental chair.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. Okay. And now say
dental furniture.
Same one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, I knew that. Yeah. I'm actually searching for the next one here.
Custom cabinets. I'm just kidding. Too. We have contractor friends who also build custom cabinets, so I want to make sure we're not offending anyone.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Now I'll try it. Treatment center.
Oh, it's so perfect. I love it.
It does everything I want.
It really does.
It gives you and we were with Faraj a couple of weeks back, and apparently his chair it knows the patient. Like the patient comes in and every setting is set to that specific patient.
You're jumping ahead on me, Mark.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Right to the features and benefits, man. We're not even
here.
You got to buy me a drink first, bud.
Well,
it's true.
Okay, let's go. So we have a client who's like, "Hey, Tyler, I want a dental office. Find me a space." We found a space. What do we do next?
So typically, what I like to do is sit down with that client and walk them through a process.
Okay.
So so what I would typically do is I have a slide just like this, and I'll walk them through a PowerPoint presentation that I've condensed today, just to kind of show you some highlights of the conversation that we have. And I typically just ask the doctor, what is his vision for his practice?
Okay.
And at that point in time, the doctor will usually say, well, I'm looking at this kind of finishes. I want it to look and feel a certain way, like an Apple store or whatever. And then he'll start talking about all the procedures that he offers and all the procedures he wants to offer. But I like taking a step. He or she, depending on who it is. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the political correction.
I just build more practices for female dentists.
No, and that's totally valid.
100%.
Can we edit that part out?
No. You know what's going to be edited out is mails from the dental industry.
Yeah.
Because they own it.
Swinging the pendulum the other way. But.
So what I like to do is walk them through this process where I basically ask them, what they want to build. And then I'll just kind of show them this picture right here. So this in British Columbia is what we call a BC box, or a Fraser Valley box. Here's the BC box. And in the Lower Mainland, in the 80s and 90s, they built these by the thousands all over the Lower Mainland. But they all look the same. They all look the same. They all feel the same. The floor plans are the same.
They even smell the same.
They smell the same.
Yeah.
I mean, the finishes are different. So there's some, difference in finishes. But when you're looking at the overall structure, it's pretty much the same. So, I'll go back to my dentist and say, hey, are you looking to build a practice that looks like everybody else? Especially these days, there's so many practices opening, like every corner, I feel like there's a new dental practice.
Oh, yeah.
So the question is, how are we setting ourselves up from just an overall design and experience when the patient comes in, where they're going to feel like they're in a different place, that they're going to feel like they're not in a dental office.
And where they're going to want to come back.
And they're going to want to come back, and they want to pick your office over the office that's 2 doors down.
Right.
So I like to say, hey, do you want to build that BC box? Like, do you want to build that dental practice that looks like every other dental practice you've ever seen? Or do you want to build something that's a little bit different? Mm-hmm. Something that's going to look different, it's going to feel different, that when the patient walks into the door of that home, that they're kind of step back and say, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is unbelievable.
I like the attention to detail.
Yeah, attention to detail. And if I can build the one on the right for the same price as the one on the left, or a very similar price, why wouldn't I want to do that? Because that's the stage that we're in right now when it even comes to the financials with dental practices.
What does that mean?
Which portion?
Like the stage we're in financially with dental practice?
Yeah, so because right now to have a dental practice, it's really expensive to build.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right, so the average dentist is going to spend, like, at the end of the day, whether they build a North American style office or a European style office, just on the equipment alone, without the actual expenditure on all of the square footage on the actual construction, they're probably going to spend $500,000 to $600,000 worth of just equipment just to set up and start doing the dentistry they want to do. So dentistry is a very expensive endeavor, and we like to say, hey, if you're going to spend that much money, let's give you something that's going to be a little bit different.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you're jumping ahead of me now. I was going to say, let's talk about the evolution of this.
Sure.
Because like I said, I think that there's a lot of clinicians who will watch this show, or they'll sort of see what we're doing and they say, yeah, I get it. I already know all this, but it's cool to get a refresher on where this is coming from, like through the 70s, 80s, 90s, to say, here's what was happening and here's kind of where the market's trending.
Yeah.
Obviously, COVID's had a big impact on how dentistry is being done, and really sort of implications towards how you design your practice, whether it's a closed operatory or whatnot. So walk us through the evolution on like how this has kind of evolved to where it is now.
And also to interject, to piggyback on that too, is the technology that's now becoming standard of practice. And I touched on it before, like there's not enough room in the operatory anymore. Yeah. So we have to change.
And more dentists are trying to, most dentists are buying digital technology, whether it's a carded system or if they're buying, uncarded systems. Like there's tabletop systems. There's so many systems out there of technology that people want to bring in, but they're finding very little space to actually put it. Mm-hmm. And on paper, it might look like you actually have a pretty good operatory and a pretty big space, but once you put all the furniture in there that you typically put into a North American style office, you're really left with very little else after that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Fully, yeah.
So this here, this is the other thing I like to show people is, the design of the dental office today, where dentists have been trained, they're really working in a space that's really been around, since the 70s and 80s and 90s. So this type of floor plan that you see here is what we consider to be an open concept. So North America, this is still pretty much the industry standard.
Do you know what year that picture's from?
And that's the funny thing, right? Like on the lower left,
they're not wearing gloves.
There's no mask. There's no glove.
Nothing.
Well, and that's the conversation I like to have with the clinician. I say, hey, you know what? This operatory design was really pioneered in a time where, sterilization really didn't exist in the same capacity. It was before the AIDS pandemic, so before bloodborne diseases were really understood, and things like sterilization, gloves, masks, even wiping down your hand pieces or sterilizing your hand pieces didn't exist back then.
Well, Seth, I don't know if you saw it, but, at the beginning of the pandemic, New York Times released this really cool article, and I wish I had it, but in terms of occupational risks with aerosols, hygienists were number one, dentists, and then respiratory therapists were like 2 or 3, and then the dentist was 4.
Yeah.
So this is obviously a very aerosol driven, with the high speeds and air and all that stuff. So
what's really interesting within dentistry is specifically a very high risk environment for any hygienist or dentist to work around aerosolization. But the number one risk that a dentist actually has in the practice is actually to get a respiratory infection because of the instrumentation they're using in their day-to-day.
Sure.
So things like high-speed handpieces, low-speed handpieces, cavitrons, piezos, all of those instrumentation produce a tremendous high amount of aerosols that fill the air.
Yeah.
So that's why dentistry was so at risk when COVID hit, because, people were like, oh, wow, like, what are we going to do to protect ourselves? And, with this operatory style design that we've seen so prevalent in the market, aerosolization can move within an operatory. So if you have an infected patient in one op, there's lots of literature out there that's showing that aerosol can move between 6, 9, 10, 15 feet within a space. And if that's moving in multiple operatories, you're infecting multiple patients. So dentistry was really had a lot of concerns.
Well, and actually in the facility, obviously there are, we're circulating the air, and just by that alone, it's circulating whatever aerosols would be in the air as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes me think of an airplane. A little bit,
or going to the restaurant and having smoking and non-smoking sitting together. Like you just can't protect that style.
This invisible wall that says
yes,
the smoke won't migrate over here.
Yeah. Well, and so the whole pandemic or COVID has really now having people given a second guess to their designs. So before that, people would do what they did the way they did it because that's how they always did it. They didn't know any better. But now we're in this space where people are second guessing what they want, and they're open to hearing a different perspective. And what we offer is what we call a European perspective, essentially. And if we go back to the image I showed you, what's really interesting about this is this really started with that 42-inch cabinet in the rear. There's a cabinet on the left-hand side, and there's a center island there. But this was really designed in such a way that the doctor could bump in and bump out and see as many patients as possible in the fastest amount of time. And it was all about the efficiency. So it was basically roller skating in, roller skating out, seeing as many people as you possibly could in the smallest amount of time. But that, for myself, I remember growing up, in the 80s, I was born in 80 myself. And I remember for 30 years, I thought my hygienist was my dentist. Because the doctor would be in and out, in and out, in and out.
You'd only see him for 30 seconds.
Yeah, and it's like, you're gone, right? So I was in my 20s before I realized that actually wasn't my dentist. So maybe it's just my lower level of intelligence being from somewhere else.
No, I had the same perception. I was like, are you my dentist? Who's my dentist?
So, and in Europe, they work differently. So the European model of working is the dentist is doing more, spending more time in the operatory with the patient, and really providing kind of a different experience to the patient that they're doing here in North America.
More comprehensive.
Yeah, it's more absolutely. It's more comprehensive. Yeah. They do more.
And I think there's a lot of education happening around North America now that are really gearing the clinician towards that more of a comprehensive style of care.
Yeah, absolutely. And they want to offer something different.
Yeah.
Right. Patients are demanding something different. So, like, even if you go back to that open concept where you have 6 operatories across the top here, imagine that was your GP's office. Like, you went for your family practice and you had to go for for some sort of medical condition that you want to talk to your doctor about. Can you imagine walking to your doctor's office and you see all the patients sitting in their rooms with their gowns on the table waiting to see the doctor? Like, there's no privacy here.
Well, they're getting, aerosols blown at you from their mouths.
Yeah.
Right.
And, talking about the anxiety and the sound and environment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then what we typically do is we walk people through the exercise and we say, look, let's just deconstruct this a little bit. And, one of the big challenges with this type of space is everything in this operatory is really focused around that 42-inch rear cabinet. Now, that 42-inch rear cabinet is only 42 inches, and it's not really big enough to really make a use of storage. So, they'll say, hey, you know what, we got to put a side cabinet on the side because you want to have a sink for the assistant, but then you need space to store all your apex locators, all your different sundries. You need space because that 42-inch doesn't really do a really good job of storage.
Right.
So then what they'll say is well, you need the side cabinet, the center island on the right, because there's more storage in there, and that's where your gloves and your masks go. But the gloves and the masks that go in that 42-inch, that cabinet on the side, they're all open to the extraoral environment. So when it comes to aerosolization, they're all open to the aerosol fallout.
So they can be contaminated.
They can be contaminated. And during the COVID pandemic, the first thing that happened is offices took down their gloves and masks. They put them into drawers because they were concerned. They didn't know, right? I don't even know if we still know, but now they're back up in the operatories where they were.
And COVID's still around.
COVID's still around, and what's the next pandemic going to be, right? Like we've had 5 public health scares since 2000. We've had SARS, we've had MERS, we've had COVID-19. We've had a number of them, right? So this isn't the first time this is going to happen. So how can we set our operatories up in a way that's built out for the future? That's going to be, a little bit more of a safer environment. And even if you look at like the specialty business, like so oral surgery, perio, for the most part, those specialties have closed operatories,
right?
Because they have a higher level of infection control standards that they have to adhere to. But for some reason, a lot of GPs are still building their practices out in this type of style. And that 42-inch cabinet there, I mean, the other challenge with that is because the rear delivery is on there from the assistant, you're really blocking a good portion of the storage space in that cabinet, and it's blocking the way for anyone to move behind it. So this is very North American. Europe is very, very different. And so what we like to do is just show doctors their options when they're building a practice out. So this design here is what we see the most prevalent, like we've already been talking about a little bit.
Seen it 100 times,
the
1,000 times.
And the biggest challenge with this, I have people just think through is, let's say you have 65 feet in your space, like you can see here, and you want to put 6 operatories in. So you can go ahead and put 6 operatories in. On the left and the right, the ops are a little bit bigger. You have 11'4", and the center ops are going to be 10'7", which doesn't actually sound too bad. But when you start looking at how much workable space you have from obstruction to obstruction because you have the cabinets in there, then your working space actually goes down to 8'8". So now you have 8'8" in the larger operatory. Now you divided that by 2, and now you take out the 24 inches for the chair because the backrest is about 24 inches. So now you're left with very little space to actually work. And this is the space that we know that we're running into where it's hard to bring carded systems in like lasers or Cerex or stuff like that. So now we have an instance where like, hey, I need more room here because this is so cabinet heavy.
If I can interject,
Yeah.
This the way that it's being done right now really reminds me, like, I don't know why, but it really gives me like the feeling of like, have you guys seen this like parkour
Was that
tag?
Yeah, I have seen
Where
that.
they're like being in the dental operatory is really like
Parkour tag.
and look at some of these guys like just trying to figure it out. Like,
Oh, Tavon's going to nail it.
here, he's already won here.
He's killing it.
Let's get it. Oh, man. Anyways,
Now put a patient on one of those tables you got to jump over.
yeah, here, we have to watch one of these. Like, look at these guys. Like, this is like being in an operatory here, man. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know what I mean?
Trying to get this is a pedo dentist trying to get the patient to sit down.
This is a really nervous patient right now. Like, oh, you got him. Anyways,
What's the seatbelt for?
I don't know. Just sit.
I love that. Yeah.
Anyways, I needed to throw in that.
No,
image.
I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you look at that design concept, the other challenge that we're finding is the cabinet expense. So, regardless of what manufacturer you buy your cabinetry from, whether you get it from a dental manufacturer or you get it done custom millwork yourself, all of the cabinetry expense here is very, very high. So you have a side cabinet, the 42-inch rear, and then you have the center island. All of those are very, very expensive. And, more and more doctors are saying, do I really want to spend all this money on buying cabinets? Like, it's just, the cabinets don't make you money. It just stores stuff. So what we want to do is say, hey, what if we could take that money that we were going to spend on the cabinets and we can put that into the tech? Because the technology is actually going to make the practice money. And the technology is what's going to give the patient that better experience. The other challenge with that is it's super loud, right? I mean, some of the biggest phobias patients have are claustrophobia, being in an enclosed space.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Kind of what we're putting them into.
Yeah.
And it's also a dental phobia of the sound of a high speed.
Yeah.
I have so many times I've been in an elevator going to a dental practice with somebody, and I'll say to the person, hey, where are you headed? They'll be like, I'm going to the dentist. Oh, I haven't been in so long. Oh, I don't want to be there. There's this perception that like going to the dentist is terrible. So, how can we have the design that we're putting our patients into maybe change that perspective for the patient?
I mean, obviously we need to focus on infection control all day long, right?
Yeah.
I think, isolating the rooms, the operatories is a bonus of that.
Yeah.
We've got that base is set. There's a lot of, conversation that goes into like the efficiency of infection control too, like dirty out and then clean in. It's a huge part of the workflow.
Keeping moving in one direction.
But what's going to have patients come back to the practice is their experience.
Yes. And that's really where, the European style of working really gives patients a different experience. So if we can deliver, if we can deliver that experience to the patient, then it's a win, and everyone's happy. The other challenge that we have with that style of operatory is it's not private. Like you can like we said with walking into the office and seeing people sitting on the chairs. Patients now are demanding more privacy. So you have someone walking in, or you're walking into dental practices and you're looking into the different operatory. You're saying, "I wonder if that guy's having happen." Like he's under sedation.
Or you're in the chair and you can actually hear the conversation happening next to you.
You talk about the guy that hasn't been in a while. He's embarrassed.
Yeah.
So let's give him his own private space to go to the dentist.
Yes, exactly. So what we've seen during the pandemic is we actually have another design that I've seen quite a few times come out. And this design concept is really fighting aerosolization, right? So what they do is instead of putting that center island in, they put the walls in between. I mean, and I can see why logically this might be better for aerosolization, even though the doors are open. But if you put doors there that are closed, that might be a little bit better. But we still run into a space scenario because now you have to put the 2x4 in. You got a 3/4 inch drywall on each side of that, and then you still have to put the side cabinet in. So your usable space, on the one on the bottom, you had 8'8" minus the chair. That 8'8" goes to 7'2", so even less space.
Yeah, every inch counts, doesn't it?
That's what I've heard.
We need a sound effect.
No, I wanted there to. That was by design.
Everybody just went.
I wanted to have like a very awkward pause.
Yes. Well, we
Mission accomplished.
We achieved that. Thank you. Moving on.
Anyways, quickly moving on.
So, bringing me back on target. So, same challenges that we see. So, we still have a tremendous expense in the cabinets. We still have a very technology light operatory because most of the dental manufacturers that are out there make a pretty basic level dental chair that has your instruments, has your deliveries, but that's pretty much it. So at Dentsply Sirona, we really try to offer a different experience with the way we integrate our technology into the chair. So let me show you the other option that we're seeing. So these are kind of where the market's been in North America. We've talked a little bit about some of the challenges that we're seeing there. So this is an alternative that we work with. And there's different ways that we can orient things. It doesn't always have to have one door. I mean, we can do different things. But this is what we consider to be more of a modern office design. So when we're sitting with our clients, you want to say, hey, have you considered modern office design, which is going to be different? So, same 65 feet of linear space. But what we're going to basically do is take out all the side cabinets, take out the center islands. So now your 10'6" is 10'6". And now you have 10'6" across every single operatory. And that 10'6" is going to give you the freedom of movement within that office.
100%.
So now the doctor, the patient, a support person can come in and they can move around within that operatory. Like if you compare 8'8" to 10'6" or 7'2" to 10'6", that's a lot more space. That's enough space to actually get a chair in with someone to actually sit. And as doctors are doing longer procedures, things like CEREC and in-office milled crowns, this now gives the patient a space to get out of the chair, sit in another chair while they're waiting with the door closed, and have that level of privacy.
Just like a bit of a body break.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the dental chair for more than an hour, it's like, oh man, I got to get up and stretch. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm 6'3". Like, I got to get off the chair for a little
while. One of like the, if we're looking at long-term ergonomics is so important.
Yeah.
And if you're in this confined, like you're crawling into a tight space, you're compromising your body position.
Yeah.
Well, then and even for the clinician, right? How many people have back issues that are?
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
And this kid sidebars into another whole conversation. Yeah. But like when they're working in Europe, they're working very differently. So if I take that same operatory and I look at that rear cabinet. So typically in North America, that rear cabinet's going to have your rear delivery system. So that's where all your suction is going to be for your assistant. In North America, the assistant typically sits farther back, up high, and leans over a belly bar, basically bends and twists, grabs and assists and drops, bends and twists and drops. Right. That's kind of how that works. The dentist then typically sits low to the ground, legs kind of spread out between the backrest of the chair, and then basically has to rotate and tilt himself so he can actually get the access he needs if the patient's not in the perfect space.
Right.
So in Europe, it's different than that. They don't work that way. In Europe, the assistant sits much closer together, like you can see on the diagram, and the chair actually goes up a lot higher, and the doctor then slides his knees underneath the backrest of the chair. So then the assistant and the doctor are working, basically we call it zipper tight, with their knees together, and they work much closer together, much closer to the mouth of the patient, but then they're not bending and twisting, and they have all of the instruments they need on the chair versus having that rear delivery. So on the European style of working, the treatment centers that we have, all of the assistance delivery package is on the side. With that side delivery there, it's actually closer to the patient, to the assistant's hand, so it's easier for them to grab, and it has to go a shorter distance. And then the assistant actually has two hands to assist with versus sitting back high and leaning over the belly bar. You know, I had one of our doctors said, hey, you know what, with your assistants, you're paying them for two hands. You got to make sure you're getting your money's worth. Why are they only using one half the time? So it's just the Germans are pretty smart, and our company is based in Germany. All of our manufacturing is in Germany. So the way they work there is very different.
Right. And it, like you said, like having that proximity, like if your assistant's right there and you're basically knee to knee, or like you said, zipper tight, your range of motion, it's got to put a lot less strain on your back. Like the less you're reaching throughout the day, the less you're putting strain on your back.
Well, and the whole goal is to keep your back straight and to have all the instrumentation come to you, so you don't actually have to ever bend or twist your back. But
so, and all these like the injuries of regular movement, even in sleep, if you sleep the wrong way, the wrong position, if you can set up yourself that you're in the right position, you're going to prolong your body.
Even my car.
Yeah.
Like I recently changed my car, and now the seat in my car, I've been driving it for maybe a month, 2 months. I now have
I didn't see your car. I was like, I didn't think I was at the right house.
Yeah, no, I
He's got a Tesla now that farts.
I did see it was a Tesla. It's very nice.
It was, my broker got me a good deal on it, but
I'm not judging, bro.
It's smaller. It's actually cheaper to drive than my other car, but it's smaller. Like I can still fit into it, right? It's still kind of an SUV style, but I can fit into it, almost as good as my other car. But now my back is going, wait a minute, this isn't the same 8-hour journey you're driving. And because in the other car, it was more upright. I was able to I kind of had the chair dialed, my driver's seat.
So if I can pause you there for a second, like there's been some times where Tyler has texted me and he's working on the floor because his back, you tweak your back.
Serious back issues. You've seen my back issues.
Seen that,
yeah. So I'm very sensitive about my back.
Yeah.
So when I do purchase a car or I trade my car in and get a new one,
it's a big deal.
I do, like, the test drive for me is not about the car. It's about the driver's seat going, okay, does this feel all right? So I test drove this particular vehicle. And, my broker's like, do you like it? Do you want it? I'm like, well, I like it. I just got to make sure the seat's okay. And then, of course, I'm like, I think the seat's okay. I think I'm good. And then, 2 weeks ago, it reared its ugly head. My back was like, nope, I don't like this situation.
I'll take it over. Don't worry.
No,
I'm still impressed you have a broker.
For a
broker.
car?
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I mean, I need a broker.
I just I don't want this car anymore. Find me a different one.
Really?
Yeah. And then he finds me. Well,
and he takes care of the lease too.
A little tip is that he's fantastic, by the way. What I do is I drive it till it hits that point of usually around 100K when it starts to really depreciate. And I'm like, okay, let's get rid of this one. Let's get rid of it while it's still worth something. Find me a new one that's about a year and a half old.
I hate going to the car lot.
So when I purchase a new car, about 20 to 25 grand is already taken off the price of the car because it's a year old.
Yeah, no, we just bought a new vehicle, or new to us, and we had a similar concept to that. So cool.
I think a lot of people buy their cars.
No, you're totally right. So I mean, if we go back to kind of what we were talking about, so this is truly a different way of doing an operatory layout, right? So it's going to have a tremendous amount of working space. It's going to be private. You can close the door. It's self-contained. It's going to really provide that patient-centered experience. And because one of the things that we're doing is we're taking the center of the dentistry from the rear cabinet like we used to have on that 42-inch rear, and now we're moving it over the patient. So we have way more space for trays and cassettes and everything because of all of the working space on that treatment center. So we move that from the back over the patient, and when it's over the patient, you have way more accessibility to grab your instruments and get into the mouth of your patient more quickly than you did before.
And it's more like this. It's more,
It really is a dance. I agree with you.
Less parkour, more ballet.
Look how much room they have. They're like two people on just one stage. Anyways,
It's so elegant.
I'm all about imagery.
Okay, so I recently switched dentists, and just randomly, we moved. And
you moved down the street.
went from one particular concept to this closed concept.
Oh, you
So I
did?
go to Leanna's office. She's my dentist.
Okay, yeah.
And I do have to say, and now I want to sort of say, like, if someone has the island concept, I mean, I don't want to poo-poo that either, because if I'm a dentist sitting here watching, go, well, I have the island concept.
Yeah, we're
You know what I mean? Like, I don't-
knocking it. Yeah,
I don't want to say it's not bad. It's just a whole different way of looking at designing your office,
Yeah.
right?
I think back to the 70s and 80s, I think it's not bad, but I think it's dated.
It's a little dated.
It's doing things a way that came out 40 years ago.
Right.
So if we can go from 40 years ago, what did your cell phone look like? Like, technology has changed the market vastly in every other
I
area
just had
that we
like
work in.
this rush of dread. Did we just offend everybody?
Well, I didn't. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, there's a lot of dentists who
Sorry.
still have the island
I know,
concept,
I know.
and I don't want to like
and it
make
totally
them feel bad for having that.
No, and it works. It
You know
it
what?
absolutely works.
And like obviously we're
We're
it's coming
moving
from
in
my
a new direction.
It's coming from my bias, but like walking through Farage's office and seeing that layout was a real aha moment for me.
It
like,
does not feel like a dental office.
No, and
No, it
like
doesn't.
I
At
pictured
all.
myself, and obviously he's a specialist, right? He's doing different stuff, but I pictured being a patient there, and even his front desk. He doesn't have a typical front desk.
I have photos coming. I can
Anyways,
show
but
Yeah.
like to picture like that's what I always like. I'm showing imagery here.
But
like,
similarly,
picturing myself.
Leanna's similar.
Yeah, I know.
It is a little more dentally. Like,
Yeah.
It's not quite a spa like, but he's downtown. He's a specialist. A bit of a
Yeah.
different scenario. But she's a GP, and she's a great Sirona customer
Mm-hmm.
who's really taken this approach with the design of her operatories. So my point was saying that, sitting in here, I had to get a filling done a couple weeks ago. Sitting in her room, I was very proud, but I was by myself. I could watch TV, I could listen to music, I could do whatever I wanted. I had my own space.
Yeah, and also we should
Huge
mention
difference for a patient.
we should mention something about Leanna too. She is crushing it.
Oh yeah, she's very busy.
She's
doing very well.
She's not only a fantastic clinician, but like she is dominating because the patient experience. I send people there all the time.
Yeah, she's a lovely clinician. She's great.
Yeah.
She has a great team there.
A little
And she
shout
can
out.
do everything in house.
JVR.
She's
Langley.
got
yeah.
every chair. And we had her on the podcast a while ago, and we talked about why she likes throwing a chair. She's like, Tyler, we can do everything on every chair.
I think what you said, any procedure from any chair.
From any chair.
So that's the other thing a trend that we're seeing in the
Treatment center.
market.
Oh,
treatment
did you
center.
do it? Did you say it though,
I was
Seth?
coming down to your level.
Yeah, thank you.
So one of
You said it. That's so
Okay.
bad.
I hang my head in shame.
You're the guy.
I did.
Seth, you're a trooper. Thanks for being on our show.
No problem.
So one of the things about having any procedure from any operatory, so it's really changing the way that we're doing ops. Like traditionally what we've done is like, okay, we're going to have these ops for hygiene. We're going to have these ones for resto, and they're separated. Now with a technology-centered treatment center, and where we put all the tech in the chair, we can set it up in a way where you can literally do any procedure from any operatory. So you can jump into using an electric or using a piezo or using an endo motor or an implant motor from essentially any operatory. It gives you way more flexibility in booking your patients in, moving them around the operatories, and you're just a lot quicker to adapt to the situation.
So does
in
it
the
even
office.
I could be wrong here, but is it obviously this is unscripted, so this is I think I saw that like you can even program what like endo
What file system?
file system you're using.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to talk about that technology integration in
yeah,
a moment.
it's unreal.
I'll totally show that to you.
Okay,
Sweet.
let's go.
So, so when it comes to Dentsply Sirona, who we are, so this is more now on my role within the organization, the products that we sell. We really want to look at things that are important to us. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to basically design a space that's going to be more efficient. So with that, back to your space with the technology, what that basically means is we can customize the instrumentation array around the way the doctor wants to work versus the way the equipment's set up. So typically in a North American style operatory, the instrumentation is instrumentation. Very rarely does the doctor change the speeds, or they have to take a break and customize the water adjustment manually because it's all analog. So with the newest technology that we have in a treatment center, everything's digitally controlled. So with a digital controlled handpiece, you can go through, let's say, a crown prep, and you can customize every stage of your workflow, or the instrumentation will be customized around the workflow that you want to utilize.
Sure.
So if you're doing a crown prep and you want to go through a high-speed excavation with lots of water down to a low-speed excavation with a little bit of water, and then grinding and then polishing, going through every stage of your prep, customizing the amount of water you want to use during the procedure, we can customize that to the instruments themselves.
So does this like transcend across like the specialist to the GP to the hygienist, like whoever's using the operatory?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. It's because everything's digitally controlled.
Right. Okay.
There's different user settings in the actual unit,
So
so it
at-
knows what doctor's who, and he can have all his own settings the way he wants to.
So
work
now
them.
that you have all these operatories isolated, you can bring in a specialist and they can come in, they can have their own setting,
yeah,
or you can, you don't have any, you're not doing any specialty work procedure that day. It's a hygiene op.
yeah, exactly,
That's
Fully customizable.
fully customizable.
Sweet. That's so
and then
cool.
what we want to do is we want to make sure that all the instrumentation is integrated. You're not bringing in different tabletop things, so we can basically customize what technology the doctor wants to have.
And you're not waiting for a chair.
No,
Right, so-
exactly. And then when we're buying the technology that we have, there's so many times that different manufacturers make different pieces of technology, but they don't necessarily work really well together. They're all working with different softwares or different systems. So what we want to do as the manufacturer of the treatment center and the tech is integrate it into the software so it's really easy to use. So when you pick up an intraoral camera, it automatically launches into your acquisition. You can have a foot pedal that's wireless, that's electronic, that you can push, and it takes your images for you, and then it'll take those images and automatically push them into your imaging software. So everything's automated. You're not spending time, using the computer in the back, or you can control everything from the chair you're actually in.
Okay. I just put my mind into the mind of the clinician that's considering this. Like, that is that intimidating, like on a technological standpoint, for a clinician to go like, this sounds just too complicated for me. I just want simple. Like,
I think it's the opposite.
I know, but like, walk me through somebody that might be, pushing back to like.
I think if they just use the equipment, if they sit in it and they operate it for a while, and and then they start to get the understanding of the muscle memory of using the Sirona equipment. I think that the learning curve might be steep at first, but once they start getting into it, it's like, oh, wait a minute.
So and
what about like, let's talk about support too, because that's like huge.
So learning how to work that way. I mean, most of our equipment is almost like Apple-esque, like it's very intuitive and user friendly.
Sure.
So I mean, my dad can use an iPhone no problem, and he's 73.
My mom can't.
Right? Well, maybe.
Oh, she can.
She
I'm
must
sorry.
have. Does she have an Android? She must
I'm
have
sorry.
an Android.
No, actually, she does.
Yeah, that makes
does.
more sense to me.
But I always get
Got
like,
a Galaxy 7.
hey, Mark, how come I can't get the sound going on the thing? And it's always like that little, the little
Speakers covered up.
No, it's not even in the phone. It's on the side of the phone where you just like flick.
It's the analog switch.
Flick
The analog.
little-
See the analog switch screws people.
Oh my, mom.
But he makes fun of me for not being able to figure stuff out.
Oh, like it's Tyler can't figure out Microsoft Word.
So
I
what?
pulled my hair out this morning.
Sorry.
I can.
I
I
love
just
you.
couldn't find the damn logo, all right?
I love you.
We'll get back into that later.
Okay.
Moving on.
No. So it's absolutely true. So we want to make sure that we're utilizing the technology that we have. We're making it easy for people to use. There's a little bit of a learning curve, right? But
sure.
once they've take a week or two in the practice using the treatment center the way it's designed to work, they're so much more efficient.
Because like obviously the pushback from everybody is adapting and growing and learning.
Okay, and I'm
this
going to
stuff.
throw an example out there, okay? So he just made fun of me for not being able to use Word or spreadsheets, for example. I use so much stuff on my phone that going back to using Word or spreadsheets,
Sure.
I have to go back and I actually had to go back and relearn Excel because haven't used Excel in so long. And I'm like, okay, I better go back and
Can you
relearn
use
it.
Google Sheets?
I can use Google Sheets, perfect example.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd
I
rather
use
use
Google
Google
Sheets.
Sheets.
Yeah, me
Well,
too.
I
Right?
think you nailed it when you just said ease of use. Like
Everything I do is on here.
the software that's been made and that runs alongside the technology now is like makes it easy. It makes it easy.
Yeah.
Like it puts that button in front of you.
I thought we had moved past Excel. And no offense to Excel. I mean, it's a great program. I know everybody uses it, but I was like, I thought we were past Excel.
It's okay, Ty. It's okay.
No, but my point is that when somebody starts using this technology,
Yeah.
your treatment centers, it's like you now become accustomed to an easier, more efficient way to use the technology. You don't have to go back to analog.
So
it kind of
it's interesting
like
that you
spoon feeds you.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that we'll talk to our customers about, if you talk to anyone that's been using this style of office operatory setup with all the technology that's integrated, you ask them, hey, do you want to go back working the old way?
Of course.
They'll all say, oh, I couldn't even imagine going back.
Right.
Because they get so used of using a technology-centric operatory that they can communicate in the patients with a push of a button. They can, communicate with their patients. They can show them videos. They can show them anything that they want to show them. They can show them the images, the 3D CBCT. It all happens in one place, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then the other thing that we do really, really uniquely, and I actually don't have my slide up for this, is we want to create a space that looks modern. So when we're designing in this modern office design way, we don't put anything in the office that's going to be easily dated. So we want you to walk into the practice today, or in 5 years, or in 10 years, or in 15 years, and you can't tell when that office was built because it has a timeless look to it, right?
Sure.
It's like if you're going to look at houses and you go look at the house that was from 1973.
It's colors.
And you're like, well, I can tell you within 3 years when this house was built. Yeah, exactly.
It's all colors.
So, if you could put something that's a little bit more timeless, as my wife would say, then it's going to stand that test of time, and it's going to not, you're not going to have to worry about doing those refreshes down the road. And 100%. The patients are going to feel like they're in an environment that's modern and really cutting edge, which is we want to deliver that different experience.
Just don't put the fish tank.
That's true. It's a good point that you made.
Although if you put the fish tank, maybe there's like a more like sophisticated, they can like swim up through the walls or something.
So I always have to get a real close up look at the pan. I always have to walk right up
the
to
pan.
Oh, okay, it's an XG. Oh, okay, it's an Axios.
Totally.
Axios, yeah.
So, Mark, do you want to talk about digital dentistry a little bit?
I would love to. Yes, because I think, we're seeing this explosion of all sorts of, like, I would argue that there are practicing dentists out there that aren't even aware of some of the tools that are available.
Yeah.
Like, not to their fault, just the explosion and the expansion on this front. And now we're talking about things like artificial intelligence. It's crazy. So I think if you're not educating yourself on digital technology and digital dentistry, you're going to be not only like taking away from patient experience, you're going to be missing the boat on just what's going to become standard of practice.
Yeah.
Well, what's becoming exciting is that you and I are putting AI in the front office.
Yes.
Right. So we're putting systems in the front office that are AI driven. It only makes sense that, hey, like how digital are you in the operatory as well? So yeah.
So like, and with technology too, it's funny that to hear all the people that are sort of, they're afraid AI is going to just replace everybody and everything. No, AI is going to enhance the people that know how to use it. And that's technology. Like if you know how to use the tools, whatever you're doing, whatever your profession is, if you're utilizing a technology that nobody else is using, you're going to be steps ahead of everyone.
Well, it's funny. So what's really interesting is in Europe, for example, the average GP does more dentistry. So like they don't have endodontists per se. Like the average GP everyone will do endo. In North America, we have our specialties, and a lot of times a dentist can get really comfortable doing a certain amount of things, and they'll send out all of the specialties to a specialist, right?
So if we'll pause there too. Like 9% of growth is new patient acquisition, and that's important. You need new patients coming through the door. Where the actual opportunity lies is scope of practice and your existing patient base. So I think technology makes it easier to do more procedure.
Absolutely.
So if you can do more things, you can solve more of your patient's problems.
Well, let me show you this statistic here, Mark. So this is right along the lines of what you're talking about.
Growth.
So we know that digital dentistry and technology are
growth.
expanding the offerings in the office and leading to growth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the average office does, the average status quo office, someone that's doing hygiene, general diagnostics, and restorative, they're doing between 60 and 90 procedures per year. Now, if you compare that to, a more forward-looking office that engages technology in a way so they actually can keep some of those specialties in the office, they go from 60 to 90 procedures up to 120. So the amount of procedures they can bring into their office by just simply having those specialties available
Where's
is
this
huge.
where's this data being pulled from?
This is from Dental Entrepreneur magazine.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Yeah.
And then if we keep going along that lines, you look at, digital dentistry is leading to higher revenues in the practice. So this is a U.S. statistic on the ADA HPI study. And the average patient spend by a GP is typically $514. Once that patient jumps into specialty services provided by a specialist, it goes up 241% for out-of-pocket spend to $1,755. So by having more options available from a specialty perspective, you're keeping way more revenues in the practice. And then the case acceptance goes up dramatically as well. If you can fully leverage that technology in your operatory and you make it easy to use and you make it a treatment center based approach, then your case acceptance goes up. So if you have two different offices, one office is just doing the average, they might get 61% case acceptance. The offices that are top tier practices, utilizing the technology, putting those tools in front of the patient, showing them their scans, utilizing the intraoral cameras, they go from 61% to 80%.
So the next thing that I wanted to say is like patient education.
Huge.
So if you're putting images up on the screen, you're walking through step by step in an eloquent way that conveys confidence to your patient. Your patient acceptance is going to obviously by nature increase
Through the roof. And so and what's really interesting is, I worked in implants a lot of years, and I would go to two practices literally like a block away from each other. The one practice, the doctor would tell me, my patients can't afford implants. They don't want to pay for implants. My demographic's different. It's not something that I do.
Sure.
And I would go 2 doors down or across the street to another office, and their office that's younger, cutting edge practice that are utilizing technology in, ways to help their patients communicate. And they're doing 20 implants a month.
Unreal.
Like it's the same. So it's the same patient base. It's
Same
how
block.
it's how we're communicating to our patients. Like, so how can we communicate more efficiently?
Yeah.
And it's by having the technology inside the actual
And
chair.
I think you kind of touched on and perception as well. Like people are kind of set in their ways, and you don't know what you don't know. So I think it's a major time, especially like with all this technology. Open your eyes.
Well, I think it's also
You got to open your eyes and learn what's available.
How are you communicating it to your patient?
Yeah,
Right?
100%. Yeah.
Hey, you need a root canal.
What's a root canal?
What's root canal, right?
Yeah.
Or let's talk about, now let's have a conversation about your oral care. And the root canal comes like, not even the word root canal, it's an endodontic procedure that comes at the end of the conversation. But it's like, let's talk about what your goals are for your oral care and then the roadmap to get there.
So now here, let's go through this journey now. Now you're accepting that patient in that is kind of still confused about that root canal. You get them into that operatory. It's a seamless switch in between a hygienist operatory to a endodontic specialty. You're selecting your file seamlessly.
So
That patient has his own, where they're comfortable.
So I think we have to back it up a little bit. So typically, if you're not set up with more of a modern office design concept and you want to do endo, some North American chairs you can do endo, but you got to bring in your Apex locator. You're limited to what files you can use. And
let's face it, a lot of people send out their endo.
That's also very true.
Yeah.
But typically, if someone wants to use a motor that's a tabletop or a cordless motor, they got to bring it in. They got to go find it from somewhere else. They got to set it up in the operatory. They got to plug it in. They got to figure out where they're going to put it. They have to have that extra step.
And also microscope too.
Microscope for the endos. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But if you have it in the treatment center, then you literally push one button and you're jumping into your specialty. You pick up the handpiece because the electrics on the treatment center are your general restorative electrics, but they're also your endo electrics. So it uses the same motor.
It's a really cool time to be a nerd.
A dental nerd.
Dental nerd.
A dental nerd, yeah, sure. Or
So-
just a nerd in general.
So let me quickly show you this. So this is kind of, this will be my quote unquote sales part of the presentation, but this will be it.
I was too late with it,
I
but
know.
No, it's
go,
good.
go.
I want to
So
get to this.
what we basically can do, so we've already talked a little bit about the overall design concept and the benefit of doing your design in a certain way. Now, once we have that treatment center, because we can put all the technology, one of the reasons we can strip out a lot of the millwork is because we have all of this technology in the actual chair and we don't need space to store stuff. So we can take your treatment center, you can put the actual x-ray generator on the chair itself. We can put a monitor with a tray on the treatment center itself. It doesn't have to come off the wall. You can put the intraoral camera on the treatment center itself. You can put a Cavitron or a piezo or any sort of scaler for hygiene. I mean, I will note one of the nice things about a piezo is from a clinical perspective, it can do a lot more than a Cavitron can do, which is mainly a hygiene-related product. You can plug your sensors into the treatment center, and then
I prefer a piezo myself.
do you?
I just think they're gentler on my teeth.
I don't know if I've ever had someone.
I've never
use
had
one
a
on me.
piezo.
It's a more comfortable experience.
But that's
for me.
what Leanna has.
Yeah.
She's 100% piezo.
Yeah.
And then you can grab your integrated endo implant motor, which has a saline pump built into it. And then you also have your endo library. So you can see on that image that's right there on the right-hand corner, on one side you have your file library, and you have a lot of your file systems out there, including Wave 1 and a rotary-based file system. And you also have your Apex locator. So you have your Apex locator plugged in. You have everything you need in one place, so you can jump to any procedure at any moment.
This seems like a dream. What's the catch? What's the catch? Okay.
There really isn't any different any catch. I mean, one of the things that we didn't talk about today, but we talked earlier about the cost to build a practice out.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So where this concept is different is on the costing side. So overall, you're probably going to spend the less money or maybe the same as building this out compared to a North American style of open concept office. But instead of spending all the money on the furniture, you're taking that money and you're putting it into the actual technology that makes you money.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Makes
So
sense.
the costing's about the same. Doesn't cost you any more, but you'll have to look at the overall cost per operatory. So, and that's the conversation that we have. And I don't even care if people don't do a modern office design. That's totally fine. I just want to make sure that they know what their options are. At the very least, they say, hey, at least you'll have an educated idea of what options are out there for you. And then you can make the decision you want to make.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Cuspidors.
Yes.
European,
Yes.
becoming more popular in North America?
I do about 50%.
50%. Okay. Would you say that it's a more hygienic approach?
So when people first see the cuspidor, they're like, oh man, I don't want that spittoon. They call
I
it
know,
spittoon.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
guys,
Spittoon,
come
yeah.
on. That's what they used in like the Old West, isn't it? When they spot the tobacco.
Right.
Anyway.
I think cuspidors have a bad rap.
They have a totally bad rap. So they're making a huge comeback. And the reason for it is pretty simple. When you have a cuspidor, you have a dedicated space for your patient to actually rinse. So you're not actually supposed to wash your hands anywhere a patient can rinse or pours out rinse that they've rinsed in a cup. So that takes a lot of the sinks out of the office. When you have a cuspidor, that's dedicated. And it's not a place where you like spit all over and get everything everywhere. Usually what happens is the patient will rinse, spit into the cup, and then they'll dump the cup down the cuspidor.
But it's dedicated for rinsing.
It's
so-
dedicated for rinsing, and it's also self-cleaning. So the cuspidor itself has a rinse on it
Okay.
that actually will rinse itself.
That was my next
and
question.
clean
Like,
itself.
how does it dispense? Like, how do you expel the waste? Okay.
It goes
I just think it's such a smart technology that like when I look at a treatment center and I see the cuspidor, like you said, right? It's had a bad rap in the last 10 years when I mentioned a cuspidor to someone. They're like, I'm not a denturist. Why are you talking to me about a cuspidor?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, no, hold on. It's not just limited. I think in the European, in Germany and in Europe, the cuspidor is standard practice.
Yeah, as well as Asia. It's really popular in Asia
Right.
as well.
The cuspidor, like the word itself, sounds like something that cowboy would use on their horse.
It
But
does.
I think
I don't know
that
what it is.
knowing that it actually has like a self disinfecting,
Rinse.
it rinses and it
Yeah.
disinfects at the same time. So I think knowing that and knowing that it's dedicated for that sole purpose it's a more hygienic solution.
Well, the other thing it does, it also has a cup fill on it, if we're getting into the details. But you actually can put your little cup on there, and it'll actually fill your cup up as a pre-procedural rinse. So the treatment center itself has a built-in water system, with sanitation system, and what that's going to do is it's going to treat the city water with a 1% hydrogen peroxide concentrate. So then when it dispenses that into the cup, you have a pre-procedural rinse already built into that treatment center versus having to do it somewhere else.
Right. So how does, like, when somebody's spitting into the cuspidor, like, how does it contain it? That's
like I said, they tip. So the cuspidors are actually motorized on most of them, so they actually move over to the patient, close to the patient, because they're on a motor.
Sure.
It's not a little arm that comes.
It's a little arm. It moves back and moves forth. Now you don't have to get one. Like I probably said, have half our clients get them, the other half don't. I mean, you can go either way.
Yep. And I think the bowl even screws off, and they can.
Yeah, the bowl screw,
that can go.
And you can put it through the dishwasher or whatever you want. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Interesting. Okay,
let's jump into Farage's.
So all of these things that we've talked about, I mean, this is where Dr. Etter is a really good example, right? So, I mean, I took these photos at his practice, and I think, Mark, you said it earlier. So he really wanted to give his patients a different experience where it was more of a destination, right? So on the top left-hand side where you see the little concierge desk, like that could be the Pan Pacific, or that could be the Pac Rim, which is like a really expensive Fairmont hotel here in Vancouver. That's like $700 a night. But you wouldn't know that because...
You know what I really love about that idea is that, like, part of the feel of the standard, and like I love the front-end girls in the practice. I think they're a huge part of the practice. They drive the practice. We know a lot, you know, obviously they're important team members, but
critical.
If we talk about in terms of, and they provide obviously the patient experience too. If we talk about like the interaction aside from the front end team, and then eliminating sort of that, the feels and the sounds of, you know, them being on a phone and asking for payment, or, you know, talking to an insurance company, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as sort of that, the sound waves that are being processed into that waiting room. That's the entry point into the patient experience.
That's the first impression.
And that's quintessentially what people think of when they think of the dental practice, is that set up not to be customer centric. That's set up to basically be business centric, to process payments, right?
Yeah.
So so that's what Dr. Etter did, is we said, hey, how can we change this experience? So someone comes into his practice, isn't greeted by 4 people on a phone, you know, trying to talk to insurance companies with that little desk that goes around, but comes into an experience like this where someone comes in with an iPad, no computer, and checks you into your appointment, then takes you back into the treatment room. What's interesting about Dr. Etter's office is on the right-hand side where that walnut-looking wood is going vertical, that's actually a door that opens. So you can open up that door, and behind this space is a hidden room, which is basically the business office where all those conversations are happening, because that still needs to be done to drive the practice, but it's not done in a way that takes away the experience from the patient. So now whoever's working at the concierge desk isn't a business office person, they're a patient experience person. So they can greet the patient, welcome, did you find parking? Can I get you a cup of coffee? Can I get you a blanket? Are you cold? They can provide an experience to that patient that's really going to have a different impact.
You know, I'm terrible for this. I'm terrible, but I have to say, like, it would be way more cool if you opened up that door and there's like ninjas. Sorry.
That would be.
We need a sound effect for that.
No,
do you have like a
lame. Or I think that was pretty cool. Anyway, sorry.
But the dedicated greeter, like I come in and Rachel's there every time I come in, and she's just like, hey, like, and I'm the rep, and she's like, how are you? Like, have a seat. We'll be right with you. And I'm like, so cool. She does it for everybody, and it makes me feel special. I'm not even a patient.
The fact that these things have been thought about in terms of patient experience, I love that. I think this is like getting really granular with patient experience and changing the game. I think it's fantastic.
So, and that all starts at the design.
Yeah.
When the patient walks through the door, is your design set up in such a way that's going to impact your patient and make them feel that way, or is it set up to be a dental office?
Sure.
Right. So that photo I showed you there, that's the so we make that's the Axio CBCT. So that's a 17 by 13 field of view CBCT. And what's nice about that, this is just a little detail, but all of those lights around there, those are built into the actual CBCT. So you can put it into a room with a dimmer light, and you can customize the colors.
Mhm.
So you
Very
can have
cool.
a situation where and all of those colors actually match the
I
upholstery
was
on the
going to say
treatment center.
that's the same color as the chairs, which
So
is
we
which is
we
brilliant.
kind of work together
The
and
stuff
provide
is
that
like,
experience.
I'm sorry, but it's important. It's important for your the visual of your experience.
Yes.
And it's funny because I remember seeing the original order for the treatment centers and saying like it was like a fuchsia or something like that. I'm like, fuchsia chairs.
The technical word was orchid. It's
Orchid.
Orchid pink.
There you go. I look at the colors like, no judgment.
Yeah. No, I love it.
I hope he likes these.
Yeah, no,
And then when you
I
see
love
it installed and you see that the light scheme that he has in there, like, oh my goodness, this is like, of course it's this color.
Yeah, with the
Makes
white,
total
it
sense.
just pops. It's great.
And then this is one of the treatment rooms that's obviously a closed room. We're coming in entries on the side. But what's really nice about this, and that's one of our Axano treatment centers. So you can see he has got the X-ray off the chair. There is a cuspidor there that the headrest is kind of here hiding. But also what's really unique is that headrest. You'll notice it looks like different. That's actually an electric headrest.
Motorized.
So it's has a motor in it, so it's actually customized to the patient. So earlier when you talked about customization, we can actually customize at the position and the height of every single patient because into that headrest. So when the patient comes in, it automatically adjusts for them.
He remembers them.
Now you'll notice there he has what looks like a sitting area or a lounge or a consult room in his treatment center space or in his treatment space. So this is a very different because most offices have a separate room for their consults, but this is a place so the patient comes into one place, can have a consult, can go directly into the chair for an exam, can go back to the consult to sit down while he's waiting for the lab to finish up some work. So you can do everything and provide that experience to the patient where they can move from the chair to the lounge, from the chair to the lounge in a much more comfortable environment. So it's very different.
So cool.
One other thing we did in that space, and I think you may be privy to this, is that we did future plummet too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so that lounge room can become another operatory.
If it needs to.
If it needs to. So
Cool.
we tiled over top of it, but so he can go from 3 or 4 ops to 5 or 6 ops.
It won't take him long.
And it's all plugged in and ready to go.
Yeah.
So that's a beauty. And so if I turn the camera the other way, so this is his lovely assistant, and I apologize for having my coat in the shot there. But you'll see there's the Orchid Treatment Center, but you're going to notice that everything is focused on that. Everything's on that chair. So you have everything focused around that patient.
You even have the colors coming off of the deliveries.
Yeah, so those are LED lights.
Oh, those are amazing.
Which are all customizable. So those lights are actually on the side of the deliveries as well as on the base of the chair on the other side. So it actually literally looks like it's glowing. The only thing it doesn't have is a smoke machine, so it doesn't look like it's floating.
That's what you need. Sorry.
That's
It goes with the
coming up.
music.
Axano 2.0
You
coming
need to
out.
talk to your people and make that
Yeah,
happen.
we are working on it.
Yeah.
Equalizers.
So if I go, so you'll notice there that water tower there. See that big tower that's next to the chair?
Mhm.
That's really, really interesting because nobody else really has that. That's plumbed into the city water, and then they add that hydrogen peroxide solution into that. There's 2 tanks in there. One of the tanks hold that solution. The other tank basically mixes that solution with the water, and then all of the water that comes out of all the instruments are treated with that. So instead of having a bottled system with a tablet that treats the water, it's plumbed in. And that plumbing in of that allows you to basically have 150 water bottles worth of water without having to change it.
Oh, wow.
So you don't have to get up and change the water bottle because it's plumbed into the actual treatment center itself.
Brilliant.
And then on the bottom, you can't really see it here, there's a little door that opens. That door that opens actually has your suction hose line cleaning solution as well. So you can actually plug your instruments directly into the water tower, push a button, and it'll automatically clean all of that suction hose lines for you. So it automates the cleaning process on all your suction lines. And then we also have the same thing on all the instruments. You can plug all the instruments into the tower as well, and it will automatically shock the lines and prevent the biofilm from building up.
So that's an everyday procedure at the end of the day, right?
Every day, at the end of the day, in the morning, and it automates it so your team doesn't have to do it. Because what's happening in a lot of practices now is they're supposed to be doing it, but they don't always do it.
Right.
And they don't always log it. So now it's like, well, if we have it done digitally, back to the digital design, it's logged in the computer and you can print out a report to say, okay, this is when it was done, this is the time it was done, and you can make sure you're hitting compliancy.
Right.
So cool.
Right.
Just like an autoclave.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's smart.
And then
Cool.
that there is the rear cabinet. So that rear cabinet, you'll notice, is very different. I mean, Dr. Edder did a beautiful job of picking the brass or gold accents, but it's a minimalistic approach. So you'll notice you have a monitor on there, a keyboard on there, and there's a few things that are on there. But overall, we try to keep that area completely clean of everything. So it's very, very modern. And then when the patient comes in, they don't see all the dental stuff. It looks like a clean surface. And then all those cabinets in there. So that's actually a wall-mounted cabinet. We have a partner named Rettle Dental. They make everything in Canada, priced in Canadian dollars, which is nice. But that there is mounted to the wall mounted, and you have a tremendous amount of storage space in those drawers because you don't have a rear delivery that's blocking anything.
He needs to put his Schick sensor there somewhere more safe.
We had just set it up.
That's like, okay.
We just done training on them.
We had just done training on that. And this isn't actually his office. This is another similar office. But this one I put in here because this is basically the same look and feel on all the millwork here, which is from Rettle Dental, to match the rest of the look and feel in the office. And obviously we have our milling center put into here. So that's their Dentsply Sirona Prime Print, powered by DS Core. That Prime Print unit is basically a fully automated medical grade printing system, which is completely different than any other system on the market because because it's medical grade, it has the highest standard. And also it automates the printing, the washing, the pre-wash, the after-wash, and the curing. So anytime you take anything out of that unit, you can be ensured it's completely 100% fully cured, goes into the patient's mouth. They don't get that plasticky taste because it's fully cured.
Wow. So if a dentist does an intraoral scan, and then they have it in their CEREC, they can then send it over to the Prime Print, do a print job, say have a custom tray, splint, whatever they want to do, whatever they want.
So that printer is also really nice because it's completely self-contained cartridges of the material. So if you're printing a splint or a tray, you're going to use a specific material. If you're printing a denture, so you can digitally print dentures in this thing with Lucitone digital print. So Lucitone is like, in the denturist world, is like the best possible stuff.
You can run it over with a pickup truck.
It's the bee's knees,
And now, what we're actually doing is printing the denture base, and we're printing the teeth as well. So that can be 100% digitally printed denture, all processed in-house for a fraction of the price.
So you can have a patient in the chair, scan them, and say, we're going to print your denture. We're going to print your try-in today. And if it works for you, come back in a couple hours and we'll have your denture ready.
And if they break it, they can just reprint it. It's digital.
No, I recommend you work. I recommend you work with a great local laboratory, though.
Who has the Prime Print?
Yeah, sure.
100%.
And using Lucitone. Yeah.
Yes. So this has been a product for us here in Canada that's actually taken off because, there are other printers out there that are less expensive. So this is more expensive. But this is a fully automated system. This is an all-in-one. What the doctor wants, CEREC's a good example because there are other milling machines out there, but the ease of use on going from your design to your printing to your washing to your curing is my 7-year-old could do it. They can walk up, push the button, it's all barcode. So you literally scan the barcode, it automates everything for you.
Yeah. This is the future of dentistry.
The future now.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even have to press the sound.
That's brilliant.
This is what everybody's talking about.
Yeah. This is great.
It's cool.
You filled my head with so much great information today. I don't know where to go.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
So did we cover...
He's out of water, too. So.
I know. I apologize. I should have like a water jug here. So did we cover a lot of the modern office design stuff today? Is that I think that we got a pretty good overall view of not only just the modern office design concept and really but also where dentistry is going. To finish it off with the Prime Print and show this is the future.
That's kind of your mic drop.
That's
and even the custom millwork has the same gloss as the machine.
It's truly white glove printing.
It's funny that you noticed that, but yes, it is.
I do notice these things.
It's all done by our great partner Rettle in Saskatchewan, and they're awesome to work with as well. But if at the end of the day, I think we've gone over some things. There's a lot more that we can jump into in the specifics of the ergonomics or the infection control. But if you have someone that's interested in hearing more about that, they can reach out to me or they can reach out to their local Dentsply Sirona rep, and they can have a conversation.
For sure. And this was a good overall an overview of everything.
Yeah.
I think next time we have you on, if you'll grace us with your presence, is we can go a little granular on different things individually.
Sure,
going forward.
We would love to.
Well, I was just going to say, you beat me to it. Well, this is going to obviously cue into a series.
Oh, yeah.
See, now you're saying it.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
There we go.
Seth, it's been great having you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Let you get on with your weekend.
Thanks, Marty.
Right.
Thanks, Marty.
And that is all from us today.
Do we have any handles there? Don't cut me off this time. You always cut me off.
And
is there anything we want to put about Seth on our...
That's all I got ready.
We got Seth there, Dentsply Sirona.
That's all we need.
He's tagged in all this stuff.
I mean, yeah, everyone knows Seth.
and it's
We know where to find
and
you.
it's really hard to find Dentsply. I mean, they are a smaller local company
That is correct. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you Google it, it'll
Yeah.
take you at least half a second.
in one
to
of
find.
the suburbs of Vancouver, and we're so fortunate.
We'll put your handle in the comments.
All right,
There we go.
enough messing around here. That's it.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, guys.